Hello RWBY fans, and welcome to my first RWBY video. In this and future videos, we will discuss RWBY theories, predictions, and all-around character breakdowns as we count down the days to RWBY Volume 5 coming out this fall. I am Calcifer763, your host, and today we are going to be discussing some of my overall predictions for the upcoming volume, as well as some things that I personally would like to see happening in this volume as well as in future volumes. So without further ado, let's get started. To start things off, we'll discuss some questions that fans have put forth since the ending of Volume 3, as well as questions that have either gone unanswered or were hinted at throughout Volume 4 and that we are looking forward to learning more about in the upcoming volumes. One of the first things that we learned was of Lai Ren's semblance. Now, throughout RWBY, we've been able to gain a hint at many of the different characters' semblances, either through conflicts or through different situations. And Lai Ren's was something that many fans had speculated about, but had never really known until now. If you recall in Chapter 10 of Volume 4, we not only learned of Lai Ren's semblance, but we also gained a bit of a look at his family life and the events that led up to him discovering his semblance. Now, the semblance itself is an interesting one and kind of goes along with something Nora had said in Volume 3, basically in regards to Ren being like a ninja. His semblance allows him to hide his emotions from the Grimm, as well as hide the emotions of other people around him, either in close proximity to himself or from a distance, rendering them completely invisible to the enemy. And as we've seen in Chapter 12, this came in very handy in their final battle. The next thing that we learned about, which is something that I honestly have been looking forward to since the ending of Volume 3, was learning about Weishni's family, the relationship she has with her father, and also learning about more of the family members that she has still living. Not only did we learn more about her father and basically the tyrant he basically is in regards to him trying to control every aspect of her life, we also, through a World of Remnant video, gained a glimpse into her grandfather, the legacy that he created, and basically how the Shni Dust Company went from a very respectable company to what it is today. And finally, a question that I have heard come up numerous times since the ending of Volume 3 was, is Ozpin really dead? Now, towards the end of Volume 3, we saw a climactic clash between Ozpin and Cinder, but we never had any confirmation that Ozpin was truly dead, aside from an ending scene right after the finale with Crow holding Ozpin's cane. Now, many fans speculated that either he was dead or he may have gotten out of the fight somehow. And with Volume 4, we came to find out that Ozpin's semblance apparently allows him to reincarnate himself into other people. Much like the Avatar from Avatar: Last Bender and Legend of Korra. And we've also learned that this is a semblance that has been going on for quite a while, as it was something Ozpin himself had to get used to, and is now attached him to a young boy named Oscar. So I'm looking forward to learning more about this, not only about Ozpin's personal history, but what importance this has in regards to the whole of Remnant. Now, one of the questions that we've had gone unanswered is, who is Salem? At the very end of Volume 3, we were introduced to her. And in fact, we were actually introduced to her at the beginning of RWBY Volume 1 in the intro. But since then, we haven't gained a great deal of information. aside from bits and pieces that we've been able to pick out of episodes, namely in the fact that she is the head of the group that Cinder has been fighting for, that she was the architect behind the fall of Beacon, and from what we can tell, she has some sort of power or control over the Grimm. We don't know much about her as a person. We don't know much about her history. She has basically remained a blank slate to this day. And one of the things I'd like to see is a little more fleshing out of her character, finding out where she came from, maybe even getting hints as to what caused her to become the person she is today. The next question that has gone unanswered, which is something that a lot of RWBY fans have been wondering about since Volume 1, is what is Jean Arc's semblance? Now, I myself have a theory in regards to what his semblance may be, and I'll save that for another video. But aside from bits and pieces that we've been able to pick out in volumes, we still don't know what Jean's semblance is. And we don't even know if he has reached the point where he has discovered it yet. Now, we could always take hints from the video game created by Rooster Teeth, Grim Eclipse, in regards to the fact that his semblance allows him to basically bolster the abilities of his companions, almost in the same way that Lai Ren's allows him to hide his presence as well as the presence of his companions from the Grimm. But all in all, we still don't know anything about his semblance. And I hope that with RWBY Volume 5 that we'll be able to get some hint as to what his semblance is, or at least as to if he's developed himself enough to the point that he is starting to discover it. Now, some of the things that I'd like to see in the upcoming volume, as well as future RWBY volumes, are more character cameos. Not only of characters that we have already seen, but new ones who have some importance to the story as a whole. Now, with this past volume, we had some great character cameos from Tai Xiaolong, the father of Yang and Ruby, as well as Jacques Schnee and his son, Whitley, and even Blake Belladonna's parents, Gira and Kali. Now, with this upcoming volume, I think that it would be very good, especially with how the story ended for Weiss, if we were to get a cameo from her sister Winter. Not only that, but I'd love to have a cameo of her mother and possibly her grandfather. Because as we were able to see, Weiss basically snuck out of the house. As far as we can tell, no one knows that she's gone. No one knows that she's left. So it would be interesting to see not only how her sister reacts to her being in Mistral, but also how her family as a whole, namely her father, her mother, and her grandfather, react to the fact that she has basically left Atlas and that they have no way of retrieving her. Another great character cameo, which has been hinted at since Volume 3, I believe, and a little in this past volume, would come from Jean's family. And with that, I would love to be able to not only meet his parents, but his 7 sisters. Now, if we could meet his sisters, I think that would create a great opportunity for some comedic value, namely with the relationship he has with Ruby. Now, I myself am a fan of Jean and Ruby as a couple, and having 7 sisters, I think it would create some really good tension between them, simply to have them kind of play off the fact that his sisters think that he and Ruby are in a relationship and they're trying to encourage this, and just seeing how embarrassed he gets from all of this, just being around his family and, just the overall confusion that would come from it. It would also be interesting to see how his parents react to the fact that he not only left to go to Beacon to become a hunter, but to see how much he's grown since then. As we have seen through the past volumes, John has gone from an almost useless character to being able to hold his own in a fight and becoming a very valuable asset to his team, not only as a leader, but as a fighter and as a companion. And lastly, and probably one of the most important character cameos to the story as a whole, would be a cameo from Pierre and Nico's family. Now, I think this would be a very important dynamic, not only in terms of the story, but also in terms of Jean's overall growth. Simply being able to meet her parents and kind of bring them some closure in regards to her death and how her memory is living on in them as a team, as well as the fact that he has incorporated pieces of her overall armor and look into his own look. And this would probably give us a great look into maybe Pyrrha's childhood, where she came from, basically just what inspired her to become a huntress. The next thing that I believe that Volume 5 should have are more flashbacks. Now, with this volume, we only received one flashback in the form of Lai Ren. And that was a really good one because it gave us a great look, not only to Lai Ren as a character, but also into his family, his upbringing, his relationship with Nora, the discovery of his semblance, and basically gave us a great deal of information that helped to answer a lot of questions that revolved around his character. So a big one that I'm sure many RWBY fans would agree with me on is we need a flashback of Team Stark. Now that Yang has left the house and has gone after his sister, I think this would be a great opportunity to have an episode where Tai Xiaolong is going through some old stuff from back when he was with Team Stark, and basically just have flashbacks showing their relationship as a team, how they work together, basically how he kind of courted Raven and the relationship they had, as well as Summer Rose and the relationship that they had, and also maybe even give us a little bit of insight into the relationship he and Crow had, as well as the events that led up to the splinter that has basically, or the wedge that has basically come between them at this point in time. Another flashback that would be very informative would be a flashback of Winter Schnee's past, specifically the events in her childhood that led her to leaving her family and joining the military. I think this would give us a great insight into what inspired her not only to break away from her father's hold, but also show us just how she inspired her younger sister Weiss to break away from their father and go join the Huntress Academy to become a huntress and basically bring honor back to their family name. And finally, a flashback that I think all of us are really looking to see would be a flashback of Cinder's past. Now, in RWBY Volume 3, we gained a bit of a flashback into her past, but that only gave us a look into how she met Emerald and Mercury, as well as the events that led up to the fall of Beacon. Now, if we were to have a flashback that kind of showed us a little bit about her past, namely where she came from, where she grew up, the events that kind of led up to her meeting Salem and becoming the villainess that she is today, would give us great insight into her as a character and give her a little more depth. Lastly, one of the things that these next few volumes need will come in the form of World of Remnant videos. Now, with this last volume, I was kind of swaying back and forth with them because we had some that were really great. My favorite being the World Remnant video for Nicholas Schnee, as well as the Great War. But we also had some World Remnant videos that more or less gave us information that we already knew. So for these next World Remnant videos, I think it'll be important if they give us some that go a little more in-depth into certain aspects of Remnant. One of the things I would suggest would be bios on the Grimm, or the creatures of Grimm. Now what I mean by that is the fact that we know what the Grimm are, where they came from, but I think it would also be great to learn a little more about each of the Grimm individually. Namely, learning more about the Beowulfs, what makes them so unique, what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, do they hunt in packs, are they loners, and basically going in depth with each of the different Grimm, showing us how they are similar to one another, but also how each one of them is unique and how they need to be tackled in a unique fashion. Now, one of the predictions I have for RWBY that I can see unfolding in future volumes is in regards to the future of the White Fang, and most notably in the possibility of us seeing a second Great War arising. Now, as we saw at the end of the volume, Blake Belladonna is going to be going with her family to retake the White Fang after they've just learned that Adam Taurus is looking to usurp the current leader. Now, I think this could add some interesting dynamic to RWBY as a story if they were to not only have Blake and her family be successful in retaking the White Fang, but if after his failure to take over the White Fang, Adam decides to splinter off from the rest of them and create his own faction. So basically, you would end up having a group of White Fang that are going back to the old, peaceful, non-violent protesting ways, and a group that is being led by Adam Taurus, who are basically nothing more than terrorists, and showing how they not only clash as a species, but also seeing how the world of Remnant reacts to these new factions and what their thoughts are on that. And with that, I believe that as situations and events unfold that lead into, or at least hint at, a second Great War, skipping forward a great deal, we'll work off the assumption that a second Great War has happened, it's over with, Salem's been defeated, people are going back to their lives. Now, at the end of this Great War, I think it'd be interesting to see the people of Remnant decide to restructure their government, namely taking the people who are on the council out of power, mostly because, as we've seen, there's a lot of stupid things that have gone on that they have been negligent to prevent, most notably Ironwood, and basically putting in power people who they believe they can trust and know will be looking out for them. Now, one of the things that I feel will be great for them is if Gira Belladonna is made a council member. Now, this would add a great dynamic to RWBY because it would give the Faunus an even greater foothold in the world of Remnant and kind of show that they are now on equal terms with everyone. And not only that, but it would also give Blake the opportunity to become the next leader of the White Fang and continue the peaceful protests and overall changes that they want to see brought to Remnant in gaining equality for Faunus as a whole. Now, there are many things that I haven't gone over that we may or may not see in the upcoming volumes, and even some questions that I have failed to talk about. So if you have any questions that you want answered for future volumes, or if you just have any comments on how I can improve these videos, let me know in the comment section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you all next time.